Hi, it's Jean, and I wanted to talk about or start a discussion about differences of opinion. I started with one other educator, South Dakota's Science of Reading Facebook group, and it has been 2 years. And we have had some really great discussions, and nobody has compared another group participant to Hitler yet. So that has been really great. So that is what I'm hoping for this group as well, that we can just have some respectful conversations with understanding that folks make different choices for their children and for their students. Of course, that's a very intense issue when we're talking about young minds. But I wanted to share some examples from other groups. So um, some of you may be familiar with the history series, The Story of the World. It's very popular, and I purchased the first set of CDs. Started listening to them in the car, and they started talking about um, ancient cultures, some of the beliefs they had about gods and things like that. And I was looking at the Facebook discussions back and forth, and somebody started to talk about how no Christian could possibly expose their kids to the information that's in the story of the world because it's demonic, and that they should be using Mystery of History instead, which is a Christian worldview where a story of the world is not necessarily. And anyway, so then there was a back and forth about that. And, in the end, folks are going to make different decisions for their family with different reasoning. So we have to just understand that as we go forward in our discussions, which I think we all know, but it's sometimes hard to remember as we're approaching something that's we have very intense feelings about. Another example is that I saw recently is um, there's like three groups of people. So there's people who would let their kids read Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, and those books, and then not Harry Potter because of the messaging in Lord of the Rings versus Harry Potter. And then there are folks who would let their kids read both sets of those books. And then there's folks who would not let their kids read any of the books. And so we just have to understand that folks are going to make different decisions. I promise not to come to your house and teach your kids using any of these books pictured here. And then I ask that you don't come to my house and decide what my kids are exposed to. And nobody's going to do that, but it's just something we need to keep in mind, that folks are going to make different decisions for their kids and for their students. Now, Battle for the American Mind brings me into the other thing I want to discuss, which is still differences of opinions, but also the title, Classical Christian Education. That it means different things to different people. I talked in my longer video about who gets to define this, that kind of a thing. I took a class this morning on creating a spirit of inquiry, the act of creating meaningful questions. And they said it's a well that has no end. Once you get interested in it, you're just always learning more. So I did read this Battle for the American Mind, and a lot of what the author said I agreed with, and some I didn't. And as a public school teacher, when I hear classical Christian education, I kind of get my hackles up because I know there's a strong possibility that they're just going to start ripping on public schools, which in here they do. They 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 show a straight line between the beginning of public education in the United States and some of the Marxist ideas that we have around now, and showing that that was around years ago. But there's some complexity. There's always complexity, and that's one of the words we need to think about too. Is that a lot of us did not get that memo. A lot of us in public schools are Christians. A lot of us are WELS members, and we never got the memo that we were supposed to be Marxists. That we're just teaching kids, like I teach kids how to read using a story about like a dog goes up a hill and gets sprayed by a skunk, and then the kids have to hold their noses. So we're just not doing Marxism and stuff like that. So there are things that I read classical Christian education or see videos, people talking about it that I disagree with. So sometimes I think, I don't really want to ally myself with that movement. And then other times I'm reading about it and I think, oh, this is wonderful. This is so great for kids. So as far as the title, Classical Christian Education, I know some people are very fond of it and others aren't. So I would say just, pull out the ideas, have folks define their terms or figure out what they're talking about, and then decide whether that is something that's going to work for your family or your students. And of course, always checking that against God's word. So those are some things I wanted to chat about. And if anybody has anything to say, please comment. Those I'm just throwing out ideas as they come to my head. Thank you.